Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the virtual chapter for February 2022. What an amazing number, 2022. In fact, and February 2022 too. So it's 222. So if you're into numerology and you know what that means, let us know. Just send a note because I have no idea whatsoever. So anyway, I'm thrilled to be with you tonight, I love February because we're going to talk a little bit about relationships and things. But let's make a couple really quick announcements if we can. For anybody watching this, just know that you can get CEUs from IACT and IMDHA if you're a member of one of those organizations, and probably from almost any other friendly hypnosis organization, just by letting them know that you've been here and that you want to claim the hours. For IACT and IMDHA, you can just log on to the website, and there's a place for you to enter that you were here and you spent some time with Michael and Karen, and you think Michael, Karen, and Anthony, I should say, and you believe that you should somehow be compensated for that. And
there are NGHers I see who are on tonight who haven't been on before. I'm delighted to see you. I am an official NGH instructor, so there's no reason why you can't get NGH credits, CEUs for being here too.
There you go. Excellent. How about, do we have any announcements, Karen?
Do we have announcements? I have a big announcement. I mean, if you're ready for announcements, I have a big announcement.
Go for it.
Galaxy of the Stars.
Oh my God.
This coming weekend, it's just an incredible bill of people. And I don't say that because I'm on it. I am just thrilled to be on this, in this group of women. 4 amazing women: Lori Hammond, Kelly T. Woods, Karen Hand, and Melissa Tears will be doing Galaxy of the Stars, and you can still register through IACT IMDHA. We will each do half a day. Starts out with Lori on Saturday morning. She's going to be talking about doing groups and how to do weight loss and other things in groups. Groups are where the money is. Kelly T. Woods is going to be talking about taking clients out into the multiverse. Wonderful, wonderful thing. I'm going to be talking to you about on Sunday morning. Kelly is Saturday afternoon. I'll be Sunday morning, and I'll be talking to you about the hypnotic magic is in the mind, our mind and that of our clients. And if we pull it out of our clients, we will get the best, easiest suggestions. And then Melissa Tears, need I say more? Well, she's going to be talking about integrative hypnosis, but I'm just saying, that's a pretty incredible group of people. And if you want to do some extra learning, they'll get replays, right? Everybody who's registered?
They will all get a flash drive. It looks something like this. This is from an earlier one, with all of the recordings and handouts and everything included as well.
So if you can't for some reason join us live, we'll be going from 10 a.m. Eastern time until like 5 Eastern time. If you can't join us for the entire thing all weekend, you're going to get that flash drive to learn at your own pace. So that's my big announcement for now. IACT IMDHA is coming up May 13th, 14th, and 15th. So think about that in Orlando, live with the mouse.
It's all getting so very exciting. And in fact, I'm doing the production work for the Galaxy. So I'm just getting the last of the material out. And I've got to tell you, we have over 80 people so far, so it's a goodly group, and so please get in time, and get in before Wednesday night, because I'm going to be sending out the handouts, and all that stuff. So we want to make sure that you get everything. And I've got to tell you, Karen, while I was putting all that together, particularly the handouts, I went through a whole lot of material, and I wanted something that represented each of the presenters, and because it's like it's a volume. It's like each of the people, there's like about 20 some pages from each of the presenters. Great material. And I was looking at Karen Hand's newsletters, and I was looking at some videos of Karen, and I remember thinking, and because it's February, I've got to point this out. I remember thinking how blessed we are to have Karen in our midst. So I'm just going to start out by gushing a little bit about my co-host here, because well, gosh, she's really got it going. And I was remembering a time when Karen wasn't in the virtual chapter yet. And it was not the same. It just was not the same place. Karen, you walk into a room and you change it. So
well, let the party begin, my friends.
So, and part of the reason that I'm mentioning this and being that transparent about it is it's kind of interesting that we, that because this is Valentine's month, and people are talking about relationships, and that seems to be the appropriate theme. I remember, I remember in the very beginning of my experience with NLP, one of the things that was, a real big deal in NLP was the models for rapport and communication, and it was all about how people interacted and connected with each other. And NLP gave us ways to think about those things, I think, that hadn't really been there before. So there were some new things to consider. One of them, see, I've got a few notes here. I remember doing an exercise in a really early NLP training called Seeing Yourself, developed by Leslie Cameron Bandler, by the way, the woman who successfully did not manage to maintain a relationship with Richard Bandler. We will notice this, right? But she wrote this beautiful exercise called Seeing Yourself Through the Eyes of Someone Who Loves You. And it was a real wonderful thing of letting yourself be in that position where what you think about you, is all of that good, wonderful, loving stuff. And I just remember how powerful it was. And I also remember becoming acutely aware when we looked at the meta model in NLP that it's rather miraculous to think that we ever actually managed to communicate successfully at all, period. I mean, really, it's quite an amazing thing. And typically, prior to NLP, at least I think I was relatively unconscious about what was involved in communication. I thought, well, you say it to somebody, and if they don't understand it, you say it again. And if
Louder,
louder, yeah, louder. And if they don't understand it, then, well, fuck them. They're an idiot. Whatever it was. But I actually remember a trainer telling me this, that this is how he says, when I present something to a room, I tell them how it is. And then if they don't understand, I'll tell them again. And if I don't, well, that's their problem. And I remember thinking, well, gosh, when we communicate, the important issue is to be received. So I can't understand why anybody who's trying to make a point responds to not being understood with what the hell with those people then, as opposed to the simplest thing in the world, trying to make adjustments about how he does it so that he can be understood. It's just such a weird thing to me. But I remember, so here it is, Valentine's Day. One of the other things we talked about in NLP are strategies, how people organize themselves to, to do certain things. And there is a falling in love strategy. It's your own and it's unique, by the way. If you've ever fallen in love, there was a certain way that you go about it. Certain things happen in a certain order that work for you. And it might have something to do with your representational systems. It might have something to do with what your criteria are. But there's something first that gets your attention. And then maybe there's something that for many people, falling in love is falling into some kind of obsessive state, for quite a while, where all you can think about is that other person, and by the way, one of the things that we notice is, and Richard Bandler, I think, said this, it was either Richard or John, but I think Richard, a really simple strategy to think about is to fall in love with somebody. What you have to do is you have to dissociate from anything unpleasant or undesirable about that person and associate with everything that's good and delightful and pleases you. And when you do that and you're 19 or something, and your parents say, hey, we don't think you should be with that person, or whatever it is. And of course, you don't see anything but what's wonderful about them to you, what's mesmerizing, about them to you, and nothing that anybody has to say about it will make any sense at all. And then the way to fall out of love, by the way, since we've learned a strategy, and this is what NLP teaches us, you dissociate from anything pleasant and delightful about that person, and you associate with everything heinous and awful and regrettable and unfortunate and like that. And I really noticed that people tend to do that stuff. It's very weird, actually. And I have a lot of people that are that have exes, and and maybe they're doing fine with them, but a lot of times what you see is people's attitude towards their exes is in order to stop loving somebody, you have to you have to hate them for the rest of your life for some weird thing. We're just, I think, really unhealthy about this. But I remember when I was in college, I thought I really want to learn about this. Now, this is prior to NLP, by the way, or I would have gone about it in a different way. But, I really want to have a successful relationship and I want people to love me. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this book by Erich Fromm. Some of you have seen or heard it, called The Art of Loving. And I thought, he's going to tell me what to do so that people will love me. And you know what he said? Essentially what he said was, be loving. And I'm like, oh, wow, what an interesting strategy that is. So again, NLP shows us, this notion of strategies that we may never have even thought about before, and now are the basis of modeling for things that we do. So here's something from Erich Fromm. He says, love is a decision. It is a judgment. It is a promise. If love were only a feeling, there would be no basis for the promise to love each other forever. A feeling comes and it may go. Pretty interesting stuff. And we could also quote Clint Black, who has a lovely song in which he says, love is something that we do. The other thing that NLP taught us was about nominalizations, in language. And gosh, if you don't know what the contract is, you're going to run into trouble sooner or later in all of your relationships, because we have certain assumptions. So since we are a couple, it means, and so often these things are just silent inside the heads of people in a relationship. But sooner or later, it shows up in the form of a question, Alex, where you say, no, it's not a question, I guess, but if you loved me, then you would, whatever it is, X, Y, Z, and now we find out, oh, you've got some criteria. And we tend to set out so often, young people at least, I think, well, I shouldn't speak for anybody, but I just know myself when I was 20 and stuff. I think often there was no sense of the criteria. It was like, I'm going to go out into the world and I'm going to find somebody that I just become transfixed with, and move into zombie land with regards to. And then you find out 10 years later that, oh no, because if you loved me, and that we've got certain criteria, certain expectations that maybe were never even spoken. And sadly, even when they are spoken, so NLP teaches us communicate, that's what's important. Well, the problem is that unless you really know the meta model, you better make sure that you understand what's being communicated, because if your partner says to you, what's important to me in a relationship, my criteria is steadfastness, for example, or fidelity, whatever it is, that there's a word thrown out, which again is a nominalization if you listen really closely. Okay, so you hear a word like fidelity, and you go, oh yeah, you check out inside your own dictionary, inside of your own map, and you go, oh yeah, I understand what that means. Then you find out that that maybe just because the words were the same, just because the letters were the same, the meanings were not the same. That the deep structure of our communication, that the complex equivalence of our words is really important. And so we enter into these intended to be lifelong contracts without being at all clear about what the terms are. And and well, what can I say? Then it becomes a real adventure, because what you get to find out is, now that I've done that, and hopefully I'm still in love with this person, how do we create this third thing? Not my way, not your way, but what is the identity of this relationship in the world? What are my values? What are your values? But ultimately, what are our shared values? What are our shared goals? Where are the places that we come together? And that's what I think is involved in being like there are people who I would say are in a power relationship, and it really is that when those kinds of energies from two different people find a place where they overlap and connect. Now, it sounds to me like I'm about to talk about the Beatles. I'm listening inside of my head and realizing I'm having a whole different conversation. because it is just that, when two people come together with a shared intention and aspirations in the world, something magical happens, and they become an us. They become this this other thing that is contributing. And I just really like that. So, and I'm a real romantic, and but I think you can become a queen even if you're, even if you're just the consort, or something. I'm not sucking all of that stuff, but I really think it's important for us to learn to talk to each other. That's all I'm really going to say, and to understand, use the tools that we get from things like the meta model to notice what's missing in this communication, what is unclear, how can because I want to understand you more fully, because I want to know you more completely. Some people use the meta model as an interrogation device. That's not the thing that I'm thinking about. It's about a vehicle for understanding, about a vehicle for connecting, and there you go. So I've just given a speech about NLP and relationships, and Karen and I were talking. I'm going to give you the microphone here in just a second, but I will mention that one of the people that is most important to neurolinguistic programming in its foundations is Virginia Satir. And she did a lot of wonderful work with couples. And a lot of times, by the way, it was all about rearranging the furniture. She would start out with couples sitting in two chairs facing, back to back sometimes, and sometimes facing each other directly in an almost conversational style. But by the time the intervention was over, she had moved the chairs yet again until they were sitting next to each other, facing outward into the same direction. What a lovely lady she was, and a great contribution she had to make. And the thing that Karen wants to share with you was inspired actually by Virginia. So that's why I mention it. And ladies and gentlemen, Karen Hand.
Thank you very much, Michael. And yes, it was inspired by Virginia Satir, but I want to say that it was inspired within my hypnotic repertoire many years ago now, I believe, when I had a meeting with some of my favorite hypno sisters. And I believe Donna Bloom, who's here with us tonight, was actually in on that. And we were all talking about, in February, talking about working with couples and working with groups and talking about love and that kind of thing and how important that is. And we put some of this stuff together. It's really so easy. Our minds are magical, are they not? Michael was talking about things changing. I can remember a few years ago, there was a guy on, one of those singing shows. Maybe it was America's Got Talent or something like that. And this kid came out. He was a 17-year-old skinny kid, just a stick, with a giant Adam's apple. And as they were introducing this young kid, he was going to sing, the thoughts were, okay. The kid opened his mouth and started singing, and by the end of his song, that Adam's apple was gone. He had grown into a full, very attractive looking man. In a matter of seconds, mind magic, right? Because originally I was just seeing what I didn't know. By the way, that's a real interesting thing to remember if you're going to present someplace, right? They just said, here's this kid and he's going to sing. I didn't have anything invested in it. But once he sang, once he gave me something of value, it made everything he did and said afterwards more important. So if you're going to present, do something of value first. Give your clients, your audience, something of value, and then tell them who you are, because then they have a reason to care. When I work with couples, sometimes that's one of the things I have to do, is give them a reason to care. And we were talking about romance, and since it's, Valentine's Day month and all of that, I thought I might do this for romantic partners, but it occurs to me, not everybody here in our meeting tonight has a significant other that they're dating or living with or loving right now. And so I don't want to limit this to romantic partners or just Valentine's Day. The little meditation, the little mind travel, time travel that we're going to do in a moment can be done you with yourself, you looking into a mirror. It can be done I've used this technique not only with couples, and I've worked with a number of couples, who want to get their relationship back, who want to stop it falling apart, who want to, come together again. So I've done this with a lot of couples, but I had a brother and sister, actually a niece and nephew in my family, who quit coming to family gatherings because they couldn't stand each other's politics. So they just stayed away from each other because they couldn't stand each other's politics. And the only thing that they could see in the other person was a brand new political belief that they just heard of in the last couple of months or couple of years, right? And so I worked with them to do some time travel and reconnect with the value of their relationship without all of this stuff, and to focus on the good as opposed to always focusing on the bad. Michael said, when you uncouple, as weird as I think she is, Gwyneth Paltrow did the right thing, consciously uncoupling, right? As silly as that sounded, it really, if you think about it, it's a pretty good idea. But I have a friend who, after his third divorce, said, I'm never going to get married again. Next time I'm just going to find a woman I hate and buy her a house and get it over with. And, how unfortunate is that? But that certainly was the way he uncoupled. He started hating, or they together started hating, right? Sometimes one member of a friendship, one member of a couple, one member of a group starts hating, and that can fester and get really ugly. We always get what we go looking for, right? So why not go looking for what you want? So if you don't mind, this will only take a couple of moments. Let's just play a little. Let's just do a meditation. I don't care if you have your eyes open or closed, but if you close your eyes, it'll block out visual input, and you might even be able to go deeper into all of this thought. So make yourself comfortable. Take a breath, if you don't mind, as big a breath as you'd like. And as you begin to relax now, and begin to go deeper inside your own mind, I'd like you to do something very interesting. Notice your breath. Really focus on your breath. Focus on the in-breath and the out-breath. Here's something interesting. Focus on the very beginning of the breath, where the breath starts, the very beginning of the breath. Now I'd love for you to focus not only on the beginning, but on the very end of the breath, where the breath begins and where the breath ends. Are you curious now about the middle of the breath? Where you breathe it in and it turns around and becomes an exhale? Notice the beginning, the middle, and the end of the breath. And one more time, notice the very beginning, the middle, and the end. And the very next time, I'd love for you to notice the space, that space between the end and the beginning of the breath. Notice the beginning, the middle, the end, and the space. Realize that space. That space is space for you to go inside. Inside where the magic is. Go through that space and go back in time. Back in time when you were having a really good time with your significant other, or with yourself, or with a partner, or a project. Go back in time looking for something that makes you smile, that maybe tingles just a little bit. Notice love. Notice appreciation. Notice the beginning of excitement all over your skin. You might even breathe it in. Let it go all over you. Look for that good moment. Listen for the good messages. Feel those good feelings from the top of your head all the way back to the tips of your toes. I'm not sure if you found pride or joy or love. I'm not sure what you found that made you smile. But breathe that smile back with you. Bring it back with you as you notice your breathing again. Right there, that space. Come back on through and notice the beginning, the middle, and the end of your breath. The beginning, the middle, and the end, and realize that you are right back here in the here and now with that smile, that feeling, that tingling, the pride, whatever you found, bring that back with you now. Oh, and I do see some lovely smiles. I see Michael nodding and Angela smiling and Anthony's got a grin on his face, but maybe that's just because Anthony's about to get the microphone and it'll be his turn in just a moment. But really, it's just a little bit of mind magic to go looking for what you want and create that. And it can sure make you feel good, can it not? Great. Okay, Michael. Oh, yes, I saw him hold up his hand.
I'm sorry, I was muted. That was really lovely, Karen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And I just wanted to add one note to that, only because I mentioned Virginia, and what Karen did was so lovely and broader than what Virginia did. But I thought you might like to know this just as a little side note for those of you who are interested in her work. And because what she did with it was she used it for anchoring. So if she was working with couples, she'd have them sitting in front of her, and she would essentially ask them, how is it out of all of the people in the world that could have come together into a relationship, the two of you found each other? And she'd have them search for that memory. And as they got it, she would reach out and touch like each of them on the leg. So we've got a two-handed anchor here that she's sitting across from. Then she'd begin the session with them. And if at any point they started behaving towards one another in a way that was unloving, she would interrupt them. She would put her hands on their legs, and then she would say, now, where were we again? and then move back into the conversation.
Beautiful break state. And getting where
Really,
you're going.
really good stuff.
You
All right,
know,
well, Karen, I'm going to give it back to you so you can wrap this, if you will, and then go ahead and introduce our guest.
come on into Anthony. I will. I just want to say that it's important that flexibility is one of the most important things we have going for us, right? Because when Michael and I talked about this, we talked about Valentine's Day and love, and let's do a romantic thing. And I'm looking out into our audience going, well, I know some of the people here aren't in a significant relationship right now, and so how you got to be flexible and be able to maneuver and deal with what presents. Roy Hunter says that, deal with what presents. And guess who's presenting now? Call me the Segway Queen. So Anthony Gitch has joined us all the way from that other coast, the left coast. It's still afternoon for you. Have you even had dinner yet, Anthony?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. So it's not that early in the day. But he's here with us tonight, Anthony Gitch, who I've known for a number of years. He's going to talk with us about the control system, introduce us to the control system, but he's promised to do a demo, to teach us a bunch of stuff, and to be really, really, really entertaining all the way up until 10 o'clock if you're East Coast time. I know that he can do it. Before we start with the hypnosis talk, though, Anthony, you have a very lovely background. I mean, you didn't start out as a baby hypnotist. You came through a lot of reinventions on your way to being a hypnotist. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about that to start with.
Okay. Well, first I want to say thank you to Michael because, you brought up something. Eric Fromm, The Art of Loving, is a book that I have on my shelf. And I've had it there for about 18 years when I first got into the program of Codependence Anonymous. Um, Phenomenal book for anybody who doesn't have it. Beautiful book. At any rate, so thank you for bringing that up. It was a great memory for me. And Karen, that was a lot of fun. I was actually riding one of my horses. So, because I'm single right now. So that was really nice. Thank you. And on that, so yeah, I did come to hypnosis in a bit of a different way. Like I just said, I had what I would call what I refer to as the Great Dislodging when I pulled my head out of my ass at about 30. I'm 53 now, and that began with, like I just said, the program of Codependence Anonymous, because I knew how to be a people pleaser and a prime manipulator without even knowing I was doing it. It was just my way of being. And when I finally recognized that I was in fact responsible for my own amount of happiness, the amount of wind that is in my sails, and where I was going to go to, I started to become really excited about helping other people to experience the joys of life. So I kind of, even before that started, I've done a lot of things like Karen said. I dropped out of high school when I was 17. The beginning of my junior year, I was just done with that whole process. I had a big mohawk in 1986, and I wore white makeup and black eyeliner and black lipstick and black rouge, and I was going to be damned if anybody could tell me I couldn't. And so I was a bit of a rebel, went into the military, and that didn't last long. I had my first real codependent relationship at 17. He was 35. And we were getting ready to go out on a cruise in the Navy. I was on the USS Theodore Roosevelt. And rather than be separated from this guy, I faked a suicide attempt so I could stay at home, right? This is how the depths of that kind of disharmony with oneself can create a lot of problems in your life, right? And I can tell you, I could point at every single person around me and tell you how it was their fault. Nothing was ever my responsibility. I was a victim of the Navy. I was a victim of my parents. I was a victim of anybody that didn't agree with what I wanted. So as I went through life, I didn't have a lot of self-esteem, but anything that I attempted, I was excelling at. I wanted to, I rode horses as a kid, wanted to ride horses professionally as an adult, so I went off and I toured with the Lipizzan Stallions for a year as a rider with them. I taught up and down the East Coast professional dressage and taught those sort of things with kids and with adults. Was on the United States equestrian team, plated to go to Athens, and then never made it. I was waitlisted, which is fine. But everything I've ever attempted, I have excelled at. That's why I call my business Excel Hypnosis, because I figure if I can do it, anybody can do anything they want as long as they're passionate about it and they're following their heart. And I've learned through all of these years, you know, since then I'm a Reiki master. I'm a certified touch practitioner, healing touch practitioner. I do orthobionomy. I'm a massage therapist. I'm a certified five-path practitioner. Don't use it much, but I'm a certified five-path practitioner. I do mindscaping. If there's something out there that has to do with hypnosis, I'm in it. And it all began with really the Great Dislodging, Codependence Anonymous. And so it's funny that we're talking about love and relationships and all that kind of stuff, because those were the things, the demise of all of those things in my life is what has taken me to where I am now. And I do a lot of work with archetypes. I teach sacred contracts. And when I teach that kind of stuff, I use myself. I'm not ashamed of anything that I have been through in my life. I don't think that we ever need to be that, because it doesn't define who we are. How we come out the other end and what we do with that information helps us to define who we truly are, right? How can we help other people? And how can we use the things that we have been through to get through stuff? So I really got into sacred contracts, archetypes, Carolyn May stuff when I was the victim of a gay bashing. I was 32, three men broke into the room where I was staying and beat me up with baseball bats. And it was through that process that I had one of the most amazing awakenings that I could ever experience. It was probably one of the best experiences and most horrific experiences I could ever have experienced because I learned another level of forgiveness. I was able to really go inside because I had wonderful teachers, and I was able to forgive these people at a level that I never thought that I would be able to experience. And through that, I freed myself from all of the things that anybody around me could ever do. And so for me, it was magical. At the time, it was horrifying, but now when I reflect on these things, it was something that I absolutely had to go through in order to become the person that I now am, and how the gifts that I get to share with people, people like you, people like my clients. And I love my clients. I love my clients to death. I hug them, and you know, as a massage therapist, I was taught you're not supposed to be huggy, touchy with your clients. You know, it's that's kind of a boundary breaker and that sort of thing. And with the work that I do, I don't think that that's true. I think that if we're authentic and people really recognize our love for their spirit, you know, it has nothing to do with the meat suit. It has to do with the spirit and the energy in which they are around us. And how can we help to fulfill, how can we help fill that up in people, right? That's what my big goal is in life, is really being able to help people experience the very best of who they are and what they have to offer. And through my journey in hypnosis, hypnosis is really the capstone to everything that I've ever done in my life. It is a true passion of mine. I've written a book about codependency and about anger issues and that sort of stuff. So I've done a lot of things. Control, which we're going to be talking a little bit about after I do a little exercise with you all. But control is the thing now that I really put a lot of faith in because of the results that I have seen with my clients, and the fact that it is just, Karen knows me a little bit. I am kind of the Judge Judy a little bit of hypnosis. I don't put up with anybody's bullshit. I call them on their bullshit. I don't think that I am there to coddle people. I'm not there to coddle people. I'm there to help them get the best of who they are. And so if they come at me with a bunch of excuses, whining, blaming, complaining, I'm probably not the right guy, because I'm going to let you know that you are in fact responsible for everything that you are experiencing in life. And when they say, well, it's not supposed to happen that way. Yes, it is. Everything that happens exactly the way it is supposed to happen, because if it wasn't supposed to happen that way, it wouldn't have happened that way. And that's a tough thing for people to accept, right? We cannot change the past. We should never want to change the past. We should be able to look at the past, learn from it, and grow from it, and be grateful for the experiences that we have, right? There's my kind of little odd take on life. I am a little bit different, and I'm okay with that. I'm a Pollyannic sort of guy, but I'm a no bullshit sort of guy as well. And so it's everything in life is about duality, and I am a picture of duality. I am the super sweetest, nicest guy in the world. My primary archetype is the destroyer. And that destroyer archetype on the shadow side can look at any single person I pass by on the street, and I can tell you where they hurt emotionally, physically, anything like that. And I used to go right for the jugular. That was my defense mechanism. And now that same archetype on the light side allows me to still see those things, but help them to destroy their self-limiting beliefs and these things that keep them stuck in their poor choices. Because I tell people when they say, well, I'm stuck, no, you're choosing not to move forward. Because it's easier to spin your wheels than it is to lock in the gears and trudge forward, right? It takes courage, it takes vulnerability, and it takes bravery to be able to look at ourselves wholly and say, you know what? there's some really good things, and then there's some things that I really kind of need to work on a bit. And when we can do that, that's where we really find gold. We find gold, we find who we are, right? And then we can celebrate that, and we can be comfortable with what we have to offer the world, right? So there's that piece. Let me offer, I want everybody, if you can, to have 2 pieces of paper. That would be 2, not 4, 2. And when you each have those, very good. I want you to take one of them. So, excuse me. Very good, Karen. So this is something that we do in the control system, that we do at the control workshops, right? Because we have workshops that we conduct as practitioners. And this is what we call rewriting the patterns, or we call it paperwork. So I want everybody to do a little internal investigation for a moment and find something about themselves, whether it's a physical issue, an emotional issue, anything like that, that you're just not real satisfied about, that kind of gives you discomfort in any way, that you just would like to get rid of. And on that one piece of paper, I want you to write that thing that you no longer want in your life. And when you're all done, everybody kind of give me a nod. Those that I can see anyway. Good, 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 good. So we're going to move through this. So this is removing the old pattern. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to kind of crumple that up a little bit. And I want you to hold that really tightly. In fact, you may want to stand up for this, but I want you to hold it really tightly in your non-dominant hand. And when you do that, I want you to out like this, okay? And you're going to screw it up or crumple it up. And I want you to really look at that hand and look at that paper. And I want you to take everything inside of you that has to do with that pattern you're no longer interested in, and I want you to put it into that paper as you're staring at it. And as you're staring at it, that paper will start to become heavy with that pattern and all those things associated with it. And you can allow your eyes to close on down if you'd like. And as that paper fills up, your hand will start to become heavy. And it will start to kind of go down towards the ground a little bit as it's filling up with all that negative energy, all that icky stuff that we don't want. And as it gets heavier, allow the eyes to close, the arm to lower. And when all that pattern is out of you and into the paper, allow your subconscious to open that hand and drop it. Good. So now, once that's done, I'll give you a little bit of more moment here. I'm watching some things go on here. I'm going to let that happen organically. And then once that's done, I want everybody to take a look back up so I can see that we're ready to move on, because I don't want to rush everybody. Okay, good. So now I want everybody to take the other piece of paper, and we are going to install the pattern, the idea, the belief, whatever it is that you want in place of that. And I want you to write that on that piece of paper. And once that's done, I want you to crumple that paper up loosely in your dominant hand. And then I want you to look at that paper in your hand and imagine the new paper that is just filling up with all that new behavior, that new pattern, whatever it is. Just allow that hand to start to fill up with that new thing. And as that begins to happen, your eyes may close down and your hand will just start to rise on up. And it will just start to rise up as all that new pattern gets filled, right? It gets lighter and it rises up as you allow your eyes to close. And then when that paper is full of the new pattern, I want you to squeeze it. Squeeze it as hard as you can, as if it's a piece of fruit. And I want you to let all of that good stuff run down your arm, fill you up, and fill that space where that old pattern was. And just allow that to happen. And once it's done, the subconscious will just drop that paper for you again. Good. Very good. And now I want you all to open your eyes, and we can do this. So this is something that I do with clients as kind of a little backup sometimes. It's fun. It gets them involved in stuff. I do this with groups. And I kind of want to ask, since we got Michael and Karen, it's actually Mike's undone. How did that make you feel? What did that do for you?
Other folks can open their microphones too if they'd like to.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, Anthony, for me, that was a fascinating thing. I really liked it, and what I especially liked about it, just from I can't help being a hypnotist. I can't help sometimes looking technically at what's going on as well, you know. And the thing that I noticed is, rather than having us write these two things down to begin with, we started with one of them. And then after we were really into the state and done with this, then we thought about what would be on the other one that I hadn't, named or considered before. And so just I'll be perfectly transparent. My first one, I have this, I have this thing about somehow or another, I never feel like I'm ready. In fact, I remember telling people when I start a workshop, I'm so glad that we can begin now because I can stop preparing. So I had this sort of notion of feeling unprepared, right, that I started with. And when you ask what's going to be on the other side of it, I wouldn't have thought about it this way. And I thought inspiration and enthusiasm.
Right on. Very good.
Thought, oh, that's really nice. And that was really good stuff dripping down my arm, by the way. I will tell you, Anthony. So thank you for that.
Well, good. Anybody else have something that they'd like to add to that?
You can open your mic. Go ahead and open your mic and join in.
And if you don't, that's okay. But I will tell you that as we begin to talk about the control and stuff like that, I am going to want some interaction. I like to talk to people. I like questions. Mitzi, what's going on?
Anthony, I liked the sensation of crushing that which I wanted to be done with. That physical sensation really kinesthetically drove it in. It made me feel immediately purposeful and on board with whatever was going to come next.
Very good. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else want to add? Deborah.
Yeah, whatever. Don't call me late.
I've known you too long as Deborah.
Maybe I just needed more time with these things. Because what I found was I was going along pretty well with the heavy one, and I, really went right down by my side. I opened my hand, kind of reluctantly, my hand opened, but it never wanted to drop and it's an issue that I'm struggling with at the moment, is what I put in there. And it just wouldn't let go. And so when we went to the next one, I just put it aside. And when, I have my thing, I'm holding it loosely. And you have to understand, I mean, I'm like great in a stage show because I'm very responsive to these kind of suggestions. So my subconscious was just like, nope. It just sat there. It didn't even, not even an inch rising. So that was, I'm not sure if maybe it was just needed more time. I don't know.
Wasn't that great information though too? Great information that you are not ready to let go of that old thing yet. I mean, I'm sorry, Anthony, I didn't mean to step in.
That's absolutely what I was thinking. The first thing that came to my mind when you said that is, and we would say that in a workshop, it's like, that's something that we need to investigate a little bit further, right? Why are we wanting to hold on to this that isn't helping us? What is it behind that may actually be needing to be looked at, right? And also the fact that I can't see everybody and I can't see where their arms are. And right. So it's like, all right, let's keep on moving then. So, there's that part of it too, Deborah, to be quite frank with you, right?
Yep.
It's a little bit harder to see. So, and I noticed that Angela had something.
Mine was, I was going to say the same thing. I loved it and I was really getting into it, but then I wasn't quite done processing, I think. And so my question was, is it normally what is about the time that you give on that exercise?
So when I'm doing this in a group, when I can see everybody, I give it until the last person drops the paper.
Okay.
Right? I give it until I can see the last person drop that paper, unless we're getting into like 5 minutes. And then I'm like, maybe we need to do a little bit of a side sort of thing with you, a little bit, that sort of thing. But it usually happens when we do it in control workshops, it usually happens with no later than about 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay.
That's pretty average.
But I
Yeah,
did like it.
very good.
There was
I'm glad
action.
that you did.
Lais wanted to say something. You'll have to unmute yourself.
What are your experiences of using this with kids? Because I can just imagine that they must love it.
I don't work with ankle biters.
You've just made an enemy of Lais right away.
No, I absolutely love kids, but here's the thing. Just because of my own personal experiences working with how I grew up in my lifestyle, being a gay male, I tend not to work with a lot of children that I do not know personally, and I know their parents well. And that is a trust factor, and something that I just, at my age of 53, in the era that I grew up, gay men are not alone with children, and they don't work with children. It's just a safer place to be quite frank with you.
But
So it's not
you
that I don't
just
like
imagine-
children.
Can't
What's
you
that?
just imagine how children would love this? Very
I can- yeah.
kinesthetic. They can get right into it. I'll bet. Yeah.
I'm a gay male and I like grown men. So it's interesting. But I'm serious about that. This is one of the, and forgive me, I don't want to go anywhere with this other than just to say, it's a terrible thing that happens with gay men in terms of the stereotyping, because we certainly aren't pedophiles. And I don't understand why people have that thing, but I appreciate, Anthony, that is a thing, and I respect you for your response to it.
Yeah, it's because my nieces and nephew love that stuff, and they always get that kind of stuff. But I'm safe with them, right?
Yeah.
So that's I will not bullshit anybody about anything that they ask. I don't feel that that's appropriate. So I will be honest if you ask something. So there's that. And now let's talk a little bit. If anybody else has got anything to say before I move on, because I'm a yacker and I'll keep going, I'll keep trudging forward. So anybody's welcome to interrupt or do their little hand raise thing and that sort of stuff. But let's talk a little bit about the control system. Because after, I don't know, 6 years of being in hypnosis, the pandemic came along right after the last ICBCH conference, and we are all kind of shut down. And so the first 12 weeks of that, I wrote my first book. And then after that, I started looking for some additional courses to take because I am an education junkie. For a guy who dropped out of high school, I have got more freaking classes, and I love to learn. I love to read, and I love to incorporate stuff into the work that I do. And so I attended the World Hypnosis Convention, I think it's called. It's Glenn Jones puts it on. And I went to a talk by a gentleman by the name of Tim Box. And he is the kind of the inventor or the originator of the control system. And his approach blew me away, because it was right up my alley. It is trance without trance. It is very direct. It is easy for the clients, and they are blown away by what they experience just in the consultation. The consultation that we do in this process is the most favorite thing that I probably do in my work. And when I was first becoming certified as a control practitioner, one of the things that Tim says is we do a free consultation. Well, I sat there, hair in the back of my neck stood up. I'm like, I will never do a free consultation. I do not give my time away. That's just ain't gonna happen, blah, 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 blah. Now it's one of my most favorite things. And the reason for that is I know at the end of that 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it's gonna take, that they are either on board or they're not on board. And at the end of that consultation, because of what we do, we are getting, we work a lot with ideomotor response, okay? And we might even play with this a little bit. How many of you do ideomotor response by a show of hands in their work? How many of you do it without trance?
Sometimes.
Karen, good. So that's what we kind of do with control is we're doing ideomotor work without trance. And any of you familiar with Old Pain to Go? Okay, so you know in Old Pain to Go, they have you kind of stand up and they're like, okay, get in touch with that part, and then we're going to have, right, it's parts therapy, it's ego state therapy, it's all of those things combined with ideomotor work. And so in the consultation, we start them with magnetic fingers, then we move to magnetic hands, and then we move up, stick their hand to the desk, right? And we start to move up the line to where we're finally getting ideomotor work with them. And when they're sitting there, even on line like this, and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to be speaking, make it very clear. I'm going to be speaking directly to your subconscious mind. I would like your conscious mind to go wherever it needs to go. I don't want you to consciously respond to me. Just allow the movements to happen. And by this point, they're primed, right? We've already primed them for this. And they're sitting there watching, thinking, what the heck is this guy going to do now? And I'm like, I'm speaking to the subconscious mind. I want the subconscious mind to choose any one of those fingers or thumbs on any one of those hands and just give me a nice, clear movement of a yes now. And they're watching. And I tell them they can watch if they want. I just ask them not to stare at me because it's kind of creepy. And their finger will move, right? And they're like, oh my God, how did you do that? And I'm like, great, this is exactly what we're looking for, because now we've got a direct line of communication with your subconscious mind, and we know that your mind is willing to work with us. It's willing to communicate with me. And that blows them away, because is what they're expecting when they come to the hypnotist is this, right? And what happens a lot with this after they get done with their sessions is we've all heard this when we do traditional trance. That didn't work. I heard everything you said, right? Or that didn't work. I don't remember what you said. I must have been asleep. So either way, they don't think it worked, right? I mean, we know that it did because we're watching their micro expressions. We're seeing what's happening to them as their skin flushes, as all these other little things begin to happen. And this removes all of that. And when that happens, and when we talk to them about the fact that, look, we've got this line of communication, what are we going to do with it now, right? They're ready to sign up right then and there. And it's like, that's exactly what I do. Pull your book out. We're going to schedule all 3 sessions right now, and then you're going to pay me right now. And that way I've got the commitment in, right? And when they start, it's just magic. They come in a week later, whatever it is, day later, whatever we decide, and they're primed for it. And our sessions, that first session, once we do the work, because this is kind of an overview of things, right? We do what we call a lot of insight work, psoriatic questions, and we start to investigate these barriers, obstacles, and objections that they have from the pattern that they want to the pattern that they have. And we have to, in order to make change, as we all know, we have to have a goal. We have to have a destination. If you're uncomfortable in your chair and you stand up, you may not be uncomfortable, but you haven't done anything, right? We need to go, I want to be to that side of the room. When we know where we're going, we know how we're going to get there, right? And so we investigate what are the barriers, obstacles, and objections between where I am and where I want to be. For non-smokers, I want to be a non-smoker. Well, that doesn't work. That's great and all, but that is not telling us really what it is that you want. You want to be healthy. You want to save your money. Those are the things that you want, right? You want to live longer. Those are what we're looking for. When people come in for weight loss, what do you want? Well, I want to lose weight. Well, that's not a good enough explanation for me. That's not a destination, right? That's just staying where you are and going in circles. So you want to lose weight for what reason? Hopefully it's for yourself, not for someone else, right? That's always ultra important. We all know that. And so we are really, really focused on what is that destination. If we don't have a destination, we wander and we get lost, and then we don't get the results that we're looking for. And so we focus a lot on that. We do a lot of what we call insight work, and we drop these little insights in conversation. So we're not having to do a lot of trance. We're just having a conversation with them. It makes them feel good. They are involved. We're asking those sorts of questions that make them think, and those light bulbs that go off. And then we start the actual, I usually talk, so that first session is about an hour. I'm yakking at them for about 45 minutes, getting all of these insights and cleaning that stuff up, removing the barriers, obstacles, and objections. And then we get into the work. And it lasts maybe about 10 minutes because I pull up that part that is doing this, right? We calibrate where it is on a scale of 1 to 10. How uncomfortable is this, right? And we build that up. And when we build that up, I'll be like, okay, that part that just created that, that's the part that I want to speak to. And I want that part to choose any finger or thumb on any one of those hands and give me a nice clear signal, right? We get the yes, then we get a no. And then we can start to move on. Are you the part that is in charge of this? Yes or no? Yes, usually. Are you willing to change this today, right now? Yes, is usually what we get. Once we've removed the barriers, obstacles, and objections, the mind always wants to go to where it wants the best strategy for the most happiness. So when we can give it a new direction, a new strategy to really reach that happiness, we've got them, right? And that change is now, instant. So we can take that all the way down to a 0 for them because we're not done in control until it's a 0. When we go in and we recalibrate and check where is that in your body, where is it that you still feel that, and revisit that spot, and is it still there? If it's still there, our work isn't done. We have not removed those barriers, obstacles, or objections, right? And we describe the mind to people in such a way that I want you to think of your mind like a ship. A ship has a captain and a crew. The captain knows where we're going, why we're going there, how we're going to get there, and pretty much what we need to know in order to get there. Unfortunately, the part with its hands on everything that steers and sails this ship is the crew. The crew is your subconscious mind. The crew, many of the crew members, came on board well before you had a captain available to you, right? And so they created these patterns, these behaviors, as ways to get through life. You know, their only job when you were young was to keep the ship afloat. They didn't have an understanding of what goals, aspirations, all of these things were. And now that you've got a captain on board, the captain's going, these crew members are not doing the jobs I want them to do, right? But the crew, again, like I said, they're only looking for the best strategy for the most happiness. So when we give them a new job, and we don't have to assign that job, they instinctively know what that is internally. But when we introduce something new to that crew member, it's more than willing to change. It wants to change. It wants us to be happy. And that's what makes it so easy for the client to experience what it is that they're looking for, right? And so that's how we kind of do that first session. And then that second session, it's amazing. They come in and flat out, I'm just like this. This is 0, this is 10, and this is the resultometer. On this resultometer, where are we at? Give me a number. Tell me where to stop. 90% of the people we work with will usually stop, say, about a 7. That's pretty darn good, right? And we're no longer concerned with all of the old stuff. Now we're only concerned with how do we make it? How do we take it from a 7 to a 10? We've already removed the barriers, obstacles, and objections. Now we just need to learn how to incorporate this new behavior pattern a little bit more. And I'll give you an example of one of the, I love this woman. She came in, she was a high-powered attorney here in Seattle. And of course, we're all doing our work online. And she says for this second session, when we cleared her out to a 0 and she came back in for that second session, I'm like, where are you? A 4. I was like, oh, Jesus, what? That's not good. That's what I'm thinking in my head. And I'm like, well, tell me about your week. And she says, well, it was such a stressful week. You know, one of the other partners were out, and so I had to take on all of her, what do you call those, depositions. and all of this extra work that she was having to do. And so she was on even more Zoom calls than she was before. And her pattern was she was comparing herself, because we've all got these backgrounds. And she says, I saw these people with these fancy houses and all these degrees, and I just don't feel like I'm just not good enough. And so when she came back in, I'm like, and so tell me, you had even more work to do. And tell me where the comparing was. Well, I just didn't even have time to compare this week. I was just too busy. Wait a minute. So you came in here, this was bad enough that it drove you into my office, because that's all you were doing in these meetings is comparing. And you're saying that now you didn't even have the time to compare? What, did you have time to compare before this? And she thought, well, no. I'm like, well, so then again, I'm going to ask you, how successful were you? Well, I wasn't comparing at all, she said. And her head kind of dropped and she goes, holy crap, I'm a 10. And I was like, there we go, right? And this is the challenge that a lot of people have. They are so, once the problem is gone, now we're focused on what else isn't working, right? We're comfortable with where we are now. And so let's focus on, again, what else isn't working. And so when she experienced this, that session, I think, lasted maybe half hour. That was it, because we talked to that part. She was at a 10. Are you happy to continue with this new strategy? Yes, we got. That finger popped up. Yes. Great. Let's move on then. And we're kind of done. And then she came in for that third session. Are we still at a 10? Absolutely. She goes, I feel better than I have felt in a long, long time. She goes, I feel free. And I feel like I can express myself. And I was like, that's what we're looking for, right? That session lasted 10 minutes. And I'll tell you, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, they're paying good money to come in and see you. And, most people are spending an hour with them. And I'm like, this isn't therapy, right? You're coming in here to get a result. And this is what we're doing. If you want to sit and chat with me for an hour, I'm kind of down with that, I guess. But I'm not all that of an interesting of a fellow. And so, and they're ready to go. How many people want to go to the hypnotherapist or whoever and spend time with them? They want to get on with their day. They're more than happy to get on with their day. They're thrilled with the results, right? And so off they go and we're done. And I do check in with my clients within 3 months, 6 months, and then a year. And I always send out surveys. And she's been a year and a half now. And when I got her year review, she was still at a 10 and she was still thriving. And in fact, she was expanding what it was that she was doing. And she was taking on more of a workload in a different sense, because now she was actually mentoring some of the younger attorneys in her office, which she would never have had the courage to do before. Right? And so she's taken it and she's run with it. And that's the beauty. That's the beauty behind what we all get to do, right? I mean, we get to help these people live extraordinary lives, right? And that's why I literally call my business Excel Hypnosis, because do more than achieve. Excel at everything, because you can. It doesn't take anything but belief in yourself, and sometimes a little bit of a push and some weight from someone who believes in you, right? And so I love what I do. And when I started incorporating this, I fell in love with the system. It was amazing with the results I was getting across the board with the various types of people I was working with. And so I got in touch with the developer of the system. And I'm like, Tim, this needs to come to the US. More people need to understand about the control system here in the United States. And so I became his first ever certified control practitioner trainer. There's two of us. There's Tim, who created the system, and myself. And it's beautiful. I love working with people. I love training people. And yeah, it's a blast. That's kind of the control system in a nut bag, or do they call it a nut bag? What do they call that? In a nutshell. In a nutshell. God, Michael, you've got me on something else altogether.
Let me ask you a question to get a bit of specifics.
Okay.
In this protocol, is it a 3-session protocol? I mean,
Yes.
or is it dependent on the client?
No, We have a free consult at the beginning, and then we have a 3-session protocol. Now, here's the deal. We let people know, because there's a few people I've had to have 5 sessions with. Not very many, but we let them know at the end of this 3 sessions, if you are making progress and we decide as a team that we're going to move forward and we need a few more, we'll discuss that then. But one of the things we always do in that 3rd session is I will get the fingers moving, make sure that we have communication with that part, and that we're going to continue with that same new pattern, that we're still on board with that. And then I kind of hand the reins over to them. And I'm like, good, now I want you to have a conscious conversation with that same part. And I ask, are you willing to do this work with so-and-so at any other time? Yes, we'll get, right? And then I start, great, now let's have you learn how to ask these questions. And I literally give them a flow sheet that helps them to understand how to ask these questions and what happens if they run into a no, right? Because we get no's sometimes. No, I don't want to change. And when that happens, boy, we could have a saboteur on board. And that's something that's always interesting, is to work with the saboteur, because we've all got, if we do archetype work, we've got the 4 archetypes that every single person has in common: the prostitute, the child, the victim, and the saboteur, right? And so what are we going to do with these when they come up? How are we going to work with them? And so, yeah, we like to do it 3 because we found that that's usually what we need, but we're always willing to move a little bit further ahead.
And is that's just for everything? I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
I
sorry.
spaced out for 1 second. That's for everything, whether it's from weight loss, soup to nuts, weight loss, or anything else.
Smoking, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I've done depression, I've done anxiety. It is amazing with anxiety. In fact, Tim has an amazing TED Talk that he does on anxiety. And so it works phenomenally. I'll tell you, I think that some of the magic behind this is explaining to people their mind with that ship analogy, right? Because they can understand now. It's like, oh, I can see how these patterns got on board. And because we do a whole explanation of the conscious mind and the subconscious mind and how those things develop, right? And so they have a really good understanding of what's going on internally with them. And I think it's important to do that. The one thing that we don't ever do is a pre-talk. We don't talk about what's not going to happen, right? And if you notice, a lot of hypnosis training, let's sit down for 45 minutes with our clients when they come in on that first session. You're not going to have this happen. You're not going to have this happen. Why would we fill their heads with a bunch of suggestions that is going to not happen? I don't go to the grocery store with a list of stuff I don't want. Why the heck would I give them a list of stuff that I don't want, right? Because that's what they're going to then focus on. Yes, Gloria. Oh.
You've got to unmute, Gloria.
The microphone, Gloria.
Okay. I thought that I really, really loved what you just said. It's true. We're always saying what's not going to happen. And that's clutter.
Yeah.
And I'm too easy to do clutter in the first place. So it's a good thing to get rid of and just go from where you're going. I like it. I really like that.
You call it clutter. I call it ETs, extra tangents. I'm really good at ETs in training if I've only got like 2 people in my training class, which I don't do anymore, because I go off on all these extra tangents and then we're like, oh my God, we're not getting the point of what we're supposed to do because I've been talking about 500 other things. So yeah, ETs are not my friend.
Yeah. Anthony, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
I'm real curious about this. First of all, I love what you're sharing with us. It's great stuff, and I'm really enjoying it. And I do a lot of stuff with ideomotor, and I my magic hands thing and all this stuff. It's a philosophical point, but I'm really curious about it because I know we've all learned different things, and then we've got this language about the conscious or the subconscious and the unconscious and the and all of that stuff. Somehow what I'm wondering, when you're utilizing ideomotor signals, is it possible? First of all, sometimes it seems to me that the part or the unconscious or the subconscious, or however you think about it, may be hesitant to or even unwilling to respond. But the other thing that I wonder is there's a presupposition here that the subconscious doesn't lie. And I wonder, is that so? Is that in fact something that you would agree with, or what can you tell me about how you think about that?
Okay, so one of the things when we have barriers, like let's say we can't get to a zero, like I said, I'm kind of the Judge Judy of things. And so when we get to session number 2 and they haven't experienced the changes they want, but we got down to a zero at the thing,
Yeah.
and I'm running into these barriers, I'll flat out ask the subconscious, did you lie to me? Are you lying to me? Are you really the part that we're supposed to be working with? Because oftentimes a part will come up that is protecting that other part.
Yeah.
And as far as the subconscious being able to, here's one of the things, no is sometimes really difficult for people to say. So getting a no signal sometimes we have to coax that out. And I tell them, you have permission here to say no, to empower yourself and to say no to me, because no is a complete sentence. And you are welcome for it. And so I encourage that, because that does happen a lot with anxiety and depression. And so, you get to, like with all of us in our careers, we get to this point where our intuition guides us. And we can start to understand what that other person is kind of experiencing. And so, and I quite honestly, I find it more with women, especially really demure women. Right? They've put that self into a cage so long ago to make sure everybody else around them was taken care of. And I'm going to lock myself inside this little gilded cage. And now I'm afraid to come out and speak up because I've never had permission to do so. And so we need to give that permission to come forward and to be strong and to express themselves. So yeah, a lot of it is finesse. And really being able to read between those lines.
Nice.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'm just curious, we're getting close to the end of the time. Does anybody else have Angela? Yes, by all means, this is the time to get those questions in. And
absolutely.
Deborah, by the way, I saw you had your hand up earlier too. So Angela and then Deborah.
Well, Deborah had her hand up first. Go for it, girl.
Well, it doesn't matter. All right, it was just 2 quick ones. One was, I didn't catch Tim's last name.
Box.
Box or Fox?
Box. Box is in a box of chocolates.
Okay, thank you. And then the right, all the years. And the other one is, I noticed every time you talk about the ideomotor signals, you're doing this. So is this how you're having them signal?
When I'm online, that's one of the easiest ways.
Oh, so you can see. Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Right. That's why, because when I'm online,
Yeah.
otherwise I'll have their hands on their knees when I'm doing it. Because when we're doing it live, I'll reach over and I'll have, okay, move your finger. Consciously move your finger. And then I'll reach over and I'll move their finger. And I'll say, now you know what it likes for you to do it consciously. You know what it feels like for me to do it. Now just allow the subconscious to do it on its own. Right. So yeah, I've got a habit of doing that because I do it online so much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Angela?
That's pretty handy. I like that because I never did. I'm always like, can you find a pillow or something? So I love that. The questions on the intake are not the insight questions.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a list of questions that you ask? Are you going by, how are you determining what questions you're asking?
So intuition is a lot of it, but yes, in fact, Nicole, who's the co-host on my podcast, she is like one of the admin people for the team now, for Tim and I's team. And we are creating what's called an encyclopedia, because we have 110 different insights. Right? We've got 20 that are more primary, right? I mean, for example, one of them that we use a lot is the baby's dummy, right? And it's, for us in the US, that's a pacifier, right? There is and that's, I need it right now, I want it right now, right? And we can hear them in the conversation that that's what the barrier is that that's what they're used to, is getting that immediate fix, right? For example, with a smoker, we'll drop that insight of, are you really going to give that kid, do that all the time to shut the kid up? Are you going to do that? How is that going to help the kid, sort of thing, right? And so that's how we determine what these insights will be. We've got a list of them, and we've got some during training. We go through, and we have 3 case studies in the book that we go through, and we're like, okay, you determine what you would do, and then we'll talk together as a team to determine what we think are the best ones for these situations, because there's never any wrong insight, because your experience in life is not my experience in life. So you have your own insights that you're able to drop into the conversation to help that person light bulb go on, right?
Great. All right. Well, Anthony, we really are running down to the end here. So I want to make sure,
okay.
I want to make sure that we get a chance to let people know what you've got going on. First of all, you've got a training coming up. Is that right?
Yes, I've got a training coming up starting April 1st. April 1st and 2nd is the first weekend, and then we skip until the 15th and 16th, and we do the second weekend.
Okay. And is that online?
Yes, it is. I do it all online.
And how can people contact you if they want more information or to talk?
So you would go to excelhypnosis.com, EXCEL, hypnosis.com, and you can look at the control tab there. Or you can just send me an email at anthony@excelhypnosis.com. And our training is not a $5,000 training. It's not anything like that. One of the things that we absolutely require, we do not take people on without an interview first. Once we interview you and we decide that you are in fact going to be a really great member of the team, because we require every 3 months you listen and join in on our continuing education courses to be a recommended practitioner. And training is a blast. Training is a lot. I make it a lot of fun because I'm kind of a goofball. But it's quick, it's intensive, and I forgot what I was going to say all of a sudden. And so there we have it.
All right. Well,
I do that too.
You were talking about not being expensive, not $5,000.
We have a lot of support. You're joining a family when you become a control practitioner, and you're required, before you become certified, you have to do 5 case studies, turn those into me, and then we have a review to make sure that you're really applying these systems appropriately. And you are supported all the way through. We don't say, okay, there you go, you're off on your own, and now don't call me again. Or if you call me, you have a question, well, that'll be another $400, please. And so, yeah, you've got us. We're on your team.
That's really great. It's a lovely thing. So, gosh, I just want to remind everybody, by the way, IMDHA Galaxy of the Stars this next weekend coming up. So I say this next weekend. Actually, I don't mean that. I mean
This
This weekend.
You ready?
Hey, and I just want to say to Angela, if you want a list of questions to ask, come to my session at Galaxy of the Stars, because I will give you the list of questions to ask.
So there is a link in the chat room. Of course, it will disappear when we're done here. But a couple people were asking for a link. But if you just go to IACT's website or IMDHA's website, you can find the information about the Galaxy of the Stars pretty easily.
You can Google Galaxy of the Stars and get there.
2 days is $129, right, Karen?
Yep.
Yeah, pretty good deal. And so four of the best. By the way, I get to pick the themes, and this time around, Linda said, what do we want to do for a theme? And I said, why don't we just make it all women? And so it is saluting the women. Originally she said, oh, the women in hypnosis. And I'm like, no, that would be like Elsa Lancaster in The Bride of Frankenstein, but the women of hypnosis. And so, we've got Karen, Melissa, Lori, and Kelly, and it's really going to be a great weekend. So check it out if you can. And I think, Anthony, we need you to hang on just for a second,
Okay.
because do you got anything left before our final hurrah, Karen?
I do not. If we got out how Anthony is to be how he can be contacted. And we got a note in the chat from Mitzi. I love encyclopedia, and I do too. I will buy it. Put that out. I'll buy it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's looking good. So, so here's what we're going to do, Anthony. You just need to get ready to open up your receptors to receive a wave of love and affection and all of that good stuff from the whole community, because we're inviting everybody to open up your microphones now so that we can
Unmute, please.
say goodnight to Anthony and wish him well, and we'll see you all a month from now.
Thank you so much. Well
Good
done.
job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was great.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Melissa
friends.
Tools this time next month. See you then.